These nuts are driving me crazy. Not because there's any possibility of a psychoactive ingredient in there, and not even because they declare no gluten on the label. No, nuts don't have any gluten anyway. But there is some confusion about a natural component of these Brazil nuts, and that is an element called selenium. It's a mineral, and it's very, very interesting. And there's some confusion about just what relationship it has to our health. We go back to the 1930s in China, when there was a rather unusual increase in a type of cardiomyopathy, which is a weakening of the heart muscle. And it was only in certain regions. It came to be called Keshan disease because it was found in a region known as the Keshan province of China. And for years, physicians, researchers were puzzled by what was going on. And then they began to investigate the food, they began to investigate the soil, even the nail clippings and hair of people who lived in those areas. And surprisingly, they found that they had very low levels of selenium in the diet. Well, today we know that selenium is very important. It forms part of a variety of proteins called selenoproteins in the body, and these have various uses. They play a role in the functioning of the thyroid gland. They play a role in the performance of glutathione peroxidase, which is an enzyme that neutralizes free radicals. So we know that selenium is important. However, you don't want to have too much selenium either, because that will start giving you garlic breath, and in even higher doses, the hair begins to fall out. So like with most nutrients, we need a little bit, but we don't need more. But here's the interesting observation that has been made over the last couple of decades, that people who have adequate or somewhat higher than adequate levels of selenium in their bloodstream are less prone to certain diseases. And the one that is really interesting is cancer. Now, there have been a number of epidemiological studies. These are studies where some subjects were given selenium supplements and others not. Many of these were double-blind randomized studies, so they were well done. And some of them showed, over a period of 5 to 7 years, a decrease in the incidence of cancer in people who were getting selenium supplements. Some of the studies did not show this. And this is why I say that this is nutty. It's kind of confusing. We really don't know what to make of it. So nobody is really suggesting that we start taking huge amounts of selenium because there just isn't enough evidence for that. However, the studies that showed some benefit used moderate amounts, 100 to 200 micrograms, and there's no risk with that. But it doesn't mean that we should be looking at supplements, because it is very easy to get dietary sources of selenium from Brazil nuts. Interestingly enough, Brazil nuts are the highest source of selenium. One of these nuts contains 90 to 100 micrograms, and that is sufficient to ward off cancer if indeed it is possible to ward off cancer with selenium, as some studies have suggested. And there's no problem with overdosing on a couple of Brazil nuts a day. You don't want to go much above that. You don't want to go to the 8 or 10, because then you're approaching 700 micrograms, and then you start having the garlic breath, the possibility of hair falling out. So it is somewhat confusing, but there's absolutely no risk in eating a couple of Brazil nuts a day. Well, why not do it? But forget the silliness about gluten-free. That is absolutely meaningless. But science does indicate that selenium is important in our diet, and this is a very easy way to get it.